Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Kaylani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Welcome back to Delightfully Dysfunctional. I'm Kaylani, and today I am joined by Ashley Booth. Ashley is a licensed clinical social worker. She is a psychedelic-assisted therapist, an educator, an author, and she played an active role in the MAPS clinical trials for MDMA to treat PTSD. I am so excited to have her here to share her knowledge and insights. And I've personally gotten to experience Ashley as a trainer for an amazing training through embodied and psychedelic-assisted therapy. So I'm eager to share everything that she has to give here on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, Ashley.
Hi, it's so good to see you again.
Yes, it's been over a year, and that experience has been so life-changing for me, and the people that I met through that are still such dear, dear friends. It was magical.
Yeah.
Knowing I got to get to know you through that training. And so I know that your career path meandered a bit, and I find that so interesting. So I'd actually like to start off by just getting an idea of your journey and how you landed into therapy and psychedelic-assisted therapy.
Sure. So I used to be an oceanographer, and I was an oceanographer for about 9 years. And through going to Burning Man and eventually having some bigger psychedelic experiences, I realized that we're not going to save the oceans or the animals or the rainforests until we heal people. And so instead of documenting all the environment being degraded, I felt like supporting people to learn about the potential of psychedelics felt more important to me. And so I started a psychedelic society, one of, I don't know, I think 3 or 5 at the time, and this was back in like 2013. And so it was just a calling to be able to get these things out to more people and give them like good information about it, and to break through a lot of the stigma around the drug war has wrought. And that led me to MAPS, and that led me to being encouraged to become a therapist and be a part of the team to do the MDMA research. So yeah, it's been a crazy path.
Yeah. And from that experience as an oceanographer, I hadn't thought about it the way you just phrased it, since it's so out of my, anything that I do at all.
Yeah.
But it sounds like in the tracking of how the ecosystems were degrading, it weighed quite heavily on you. And it felt like, oh, here I am stuck doing this. And where can I ignite some hope for myself and for others? And where's the solution here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we had joked when I was working in oceanography that I think Scientific American each year would do, like, as a joke, like, what are the worst jobs in science? And they said,
oh gosh,
that marine biologist was the worst because it was bad news day in, day out. I was like, oh God. And so, and it's true. And so being able to look at the world, and one of the few places I could see hope was with psychedelics. And obviously it's got its own complications, but at the same time there is a lot of hope that can be offered through it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And you've been involved in some significant research. Speaking of getting to participate in the MAPS trials, so I'd like for us to kind of jump there and understand more of your role that you played and what was found from those trials for those of the listeners who aren't exposed to that information yet.
Sure. Yeah. So at first I was brought on as the study coordinator because I had a research background. But at the same time, I was interested in the therapy work and they allowed me to go and do the MAPS training, even though I wasn't licensed yet. And so it was just this really fortuitous path.
Yeah.
So I got trained, and then they said, go back to school, get your license, and then you can work on the trial. And I did. And as far as I know, I think I might have been the only pre-licensed clinician on the study. So it was a huge honor. And yeah, so as far as the findings go, so we were using MDMA along with therapy to support people with treating their PTSD symptoms. And it was structured in a way where you had several sessions beforehand. There were preparation that were without the support of the MDMA. It was just a therapy session. And then you do a long all-day session with MDMA with 2 therapists. And then after that, several more non-medicine integration sessions. And we did that kind of cycle 3 times for each participant in the trial. So they did MDMA assisted psychotherapy about a month apart 3 times. And, not only was it just, surreal to be a part of the research as it was happening, but to be able to be a part of the magic that came through in each of the sessions with the participants that got MDMA. Because MDMA, it lowers the activity in the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that has a lot to do with fear. And so it helps people be able to feel safe enough to be able to talk about and process through their trauma in a way that normally their body would just be moving out of the window of tolerance. And it also has a lot of pro-social hormones that get kicked up. And so they feel more connected and more open and more chatty, and also a lot more open-hearted, right? And that really allows people, and what we saw was that people would kind of naturally start doing internal family systems, like organically, even though we weren't doing that as the modality, but people were getting in touch with themselves, like a deeper sense of self, and being able to support them and their parts as they process through their trauma. And so we were getting results that were so much better than anything else that's available on the market right now. And ironically, well, I don't know if it's maybe ironically, but that even with the placebo for people that didn't get the MDMA, but they went through the whole protocol and got 50 hours of therapy with 2 therapists, they still did better than any other thing that is available for PTSD on the market right now. So just really good therapy also helps PTSD better than any of the medications do, which is, I think, also important to note. But the MDMA therapy still did better.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And it, wow, what a perfect blend into another world for you. Like it was just really presented like the universe welcomed you in as you were shifting. That's so very cool.
Yeah, it very much felt like that. It's felt very serendipitous.
Yeah. So you've like I had mentioned as I introduced you, there's been a lot of dabbling into different areas for you, a lot of research and training initiatives, education, and then your therapy practice, as well as this picture book that we'll start talking about a little bit more that you've authored and is coming out soon. What have been some of the most fulfilling aspects of your work so far?
I think it's being able to pass on the gift that I feel like that I've received from these medicines, and to see and to support people doing them in a way that reduces the risk that can come from that, and seeing people's lives shift and deepening into themselves and deepening into a place of meaning, and a context bigger than themselves. So yeah, it's
what an honor.
So juicy.
It is. It's like the good stuff. It is. And speaking of, one of the ways that you have created something to support people is this picture book. And it incorporates IFS, internal family systems. So tell us a little bit about what IFS is, if there's a way to abbreviate it for anyone who doesn't yet know.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I've gotten pretty good at the elevator pitch for this.
Yeah.
So, if you think about how we might have different perspectives in our mind. So one part of us might say, you want to eat that donut. I want to eat that donut. And then another part says, don't eat the donut. It's not healthy for you. Right. So we have these conflicting voices that are inside of us. And when we can acknowledge that they're almost like these internal, members of like a collective family that have these dynamics between them. Like some of them are really authoritarian, other ones feel like a child, and we recognize that we're not just one, like we don't have a fixed personality kind of depending on what the context is or what it is. And when there's a lot of conflict in there, that's when people start to really suffer. So that's one piece of it, is that maybe the ego isn't just one thing, but it's a collection of different parts and sort of sub-personalities. And then the other piece of it is that, so the person that sort of discovered, I would say, IFS or really fleshed it out, his name is Richard Schwartz. And what he discovered was that if he asked each of the parts, each of the voices to kind of step aside, he kept asking them to step aside. And then he recognized that eventually you got to something that people would say, well, that's not a part, that's just me. And he started to recognize that the me, the self that was at the deepest essence of everyone, have a lot of really similar qualities, like curiosity, compassion, and a lot of C words. And so that framework and the fact that, that he kind of came to this sense through his research that there was something deeper and kind of universal about all of us, really resonated with my own experiences with psychedelics and my, own journey. And so it just felt very natural and very intuitive.
Yeah, IFS really naturally works so well with psychedelic work. It really complements one another. I sat behind Dick Schwartz and Bessel van der Kolk at the MAPS conference, and I was fangirling so hard, but I was like frozen and staring at the back of their head. There's so few people who would understand that, but I was like, oh, it's them.
Yeah, Dick's really sweet, and he's been very supportive and wrote a really nice endorsement of the book. So
yeah, he wrote the foreword, right?
Well, it was an endorsement. I mean, the book's so short, there wasn't like a full foreword, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, so it's so exciting too. He understood the vision and everything that you created. And it's so nice to have a visual element. So what inspired you to create this picture book for adults about IFS? And I think it's bringing in this completely different element of yourself.
Yeah. So it really came from me becoming a therapist, and I'm still, pretty new. I've been licensed for about a year, but, had a long time working on the studies and just kind of a circuitous path. But when I started integrating IFS into my work with clients, I very quickly was like, it's going to take me several sessions just to explain what this is, and in a way that, I want to keep it helpful towards what they're doing. And so I really wanted a resource that was like a really easy introduction to IFS. And a lot of people don't want to read long books, or that's just not their thing. And
right.
While, I highly recommend clients that want to dig deeper to read Dick's book, No Bad Parts. Beautifully written, even for people that know something about IFS. I love that book. But I was looking out there, and there was a couple of picture books, but I felt like they introduced things in sort of a backwards way, that they were sort of talking about the self before they talked about parts. And sometimes when people are really struggling, it's a little bit of a hard sell to be like, you have this beautiful essence inside of you. And they're like, I don't feel like that.
Right. There's so many layers. There's some who are like, I don't know what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So the book really tries to meet people where they're at. And just making it a picture book, I felt like Well, IFS is just it feels very visual to me, and I'm dyslexic, and so I'm a very visual person, and I've been an artist for years, or since I was a child. And when I do IFS with clients, I'm visualizing what does their part look like? How is it related in space to their self and their other parts? What does the scene look like? It's so visual. And so it just felt like it really lended itself to doing a picture book that could be read in like 20 to 30 minutes. You get through the main concepts of IFS in a pretty nuanced way, I think, for considering that it's a picture book. And then therapists can give it to their clients. They read it beforehand, and then they can really jumpstart the therapy from there.
I love it. I can't wait to use it. It's already in my cart, so I'm so ready. And I agree. I think the idea, personally, when I'm introducing IFS to clients, I kind of have to say it sounds kind of weird, but it's like you have these multiple personalities, and as you're explaining it, it's nice to have a visual aid that's really giving more. I mean, what, like a picture's worth 1,000 words? It's just giving more depth to that understanding.
Yeah. So, I mean, the metaphor that I use in the book that kind of lays out the whole framework is that the self is the sun and our parts are clouds. And so when we're so covered with, all of this, the parts of us that are anxious or depressed or struggling, the clouds completely cover the sun, and then we don't have access to that self energy. And so I kind of heard that metaphor, or it just really resonated with me. And so it just made sense to be able to use that as the framework for the book, which then turned into a whole bunch of really cute sort of weather metaphors, and it worked really well. Yeah, all the little characters there's a sun and a bunch of little clouds and things, and so pretty cute.
I also love that it incorporates nature, and like we're part of nature. It's tying it all in that way too. For you, when it comes to your sense of self, what activities or what kinds of spaces help you access that for yourself?
Art, for sure. Yeah. I mean, being able to I use art a lot for integration work when I'm integrating my own experiences, and the artwork, it allows me to be in a non-verbal, non-language based place, but in a more more visual, symbol based headspace. And so it feels more kind of open to be able to flow in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that makes so much sense. I mean, there's no right or wrong with art, and words are tricky. Words are just, they're not, it's not enough. It's not enough to encompass how to capture those experiences. Yeah.
And I noticed that, like, one of the ways that I notice if clients are kind of in what we call like a self-like part, sometimes we have parts that want to be like, I'm doing the right thing and I'm going to, like embody compassion, but they're actually just sort of a part mimicking that. It's not actually like the deeper essence that's underneath. And so I often notice when clients are in a part like that, because they're talking a little bit more than they're talking more. And I find that when people are really truly in self, it's really more of a state of being than it is sort of giving advice, or like it's just sort of like emanating a kind of presence.
Yeah. Is once this concept is understood, it's really interesting just observing people and observing yourself in like these parts coming up, and what little gestures or tone of voice or speed of voice and all these things really shift and change the posture someone holds, everything.
Totally. And it just makes so much more sense. And one of the things that I really appreciate about IFS is, whereas I think a lot of mindfulness practices, there can be a misunderstanding of the practices where we're like, well, you got to like ignore your thoughts, right? Or um, yeah, and what you're doing is you're like exiling a part of you that is talking or is worrying or something. And so that's actually creating more tension in our system. And so what I love about this practice is that it's not about pushing them away, but really inviting them in and understanding that these parts are the stewards and the communicators of our human needs. And if we try to ignore them, we're ignoring what they're communicating. And sometimes they're really deep, like painful feelings that need to be processed because they have a need to be understood or they need to belong. And yeah, that just it just so much appeals to my sensibilities that this is not about creating an othering, but to be in a space of compassion.
Right. It's a much more holistic perspective. And I love what you said about stewarding our human needs. I think that's how you phrased it. Yeah, I'm going to have to steal that one. Because, yeah, it's so true. It's like, how do we extend a deeper, non-judgmental understanding?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I did in the book was I really love nonviolent communication. And one of the things that I really love about it is that it is a way to help people understand and get to know what their needs are, which a lot of people don't have a lot of skills around that. And so I really was chewing on that when I was writing the book around what is the relationship between the parts and our core kind of universal human needs. And what it seemed like to me was that the parts are actually sort of either the embodiment of those human needs, and the communicators of when that need is not getting met, or they are a part that has stepped into a role as a helper that is helping get that need met, right, through some sort of strategy. So, if you have a part that's needing, validation or belonging or affection or love, there's a part that maybe, puts on like, well, I have to put on this mask because then people will like me better, right? And that's going to be a persona that develops, but it's just a part that's trying to help get a need met.
Yeah.
And so it felt really important to kind of tie that in because I use that as in my practice every day.
Yeah. Well, maintaining confidentiality, I am really curious as to how often clients are visualizing their parts as people and like describing their dress or the way that they look to, and just really giving them a moment to be embodied. And I once had a client recently and they were expressing one of their parts. Like one was like described with a name and like as a person. And then this other part had a very strange name and was like a box shape that was around them. It was a shape. And just understanding how that really starts getting flushed out. Do you have any insight or shares when it comes to clients that you've worked with as they process through IFS?
Yeah. Well, I'm usually guiding people and kind of facilitating that personification. And so one of the phrases that I think I picked up somewhere, which I love, is if you can clothe that part in your imagination, what would you imagine it as? Is it a shape, a texture, a younger version of you? Is it a metaphor? Is it an animal? And I'll usually kind of give a little example of like a little menu. I've also done Hakomi training, and so we often give like a menu of little things that people can kind of like feel into. But I kind of feel like I need to know what this part looks like and where it's located in space. Is it really close? Is it trapped on their shoulder? Is it really far away and exiled? Like, because I'm trying to visualize what they're experiencing. And so as they're discovering it, I'm discovering it with them and kind of painting a scene in a way.
Yeah. Oh, I'm stealing that too. I love it.
Good one.
How do you feel? And I know you do a lot of ketamine work. So you're a ketamine assisted therapist, and that's a part of some of the medicine work that you do. So how do you see IFS and ketamine working together to
Sure.
facilitate healing for your clients?
Yeah. So I use IFS as a contextual framework for the whole kind of ketamine series that I do with clients. And what I notice is that we encourage and we're offering to all of the parts in the system that ketamine is here to help facilitate more communication between parts that maybe have been polarized against each other and caused a lot of tension. And so they all get to we want to encourage them to feel the ketamine, and that it helps them maybe feel a little bit less afraid, because also ketamine, just like MDMA, also works on the amygdala, and so it allows people to feel less fear. And especially our helper parts or our protector parts, they're all about fear. That's kind of like how they're navigating the world, is either this, I'm scared of that, or I'm scared to feel that, and that's how and so to be able to have something that helps to downregulate the fear allows them to be a little bit more open. And then there's maybe a little bit more space for our self energy to come through. And people can have, very profound experiences, sometimes even getting to a mystical experience where they get to connect with a deeper sense of self. I have one client who she connects to herself and she called it Big Mama energy. Because it just felt, when she's in that, she feels just maternal and bigger than all the other parts. Because sometimes when we're in a part and we're so involved in the story and it's so blended with us, then it's like it feels so big. But then when we can be in a bigger sense, and that worry becomes smaller, it becomes more manageable and less overwhelming.
Yeah, big mama energy. I feel sturdy. I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of remembering back to now the ketamine training, which was a large group. How many people were in the training? I can't.
We had typically around 22 participants and then maybe like 6 staff or something. Yeah.
Right. And I've noticed what an impact group work has.
Oh, yeah.
And how different that is. What are some of your observations of group medicine work?
Yeah, I mean, there's such a gift to both individual work and group work. And in a way, I think that the individual work is just getting people well enough to be able to do group work, because group work is, I think, the balm to the alienation and the disconnection that that is rampant in our society and our culture right now. And so to be in spaces where we get to co-regulate together, to go through catharsis together, to witness one another, to be in a space of intimacy and vulnerability, like that is potent medicine.
It's the best drug, just connection, human connection.
Right. And so when you can get people into a container where they can drop in like that, and then the medicine can help facilitate those vulnerabilities or that processing, and then being able to also learn and heal with people, right? And oftentimes those groups that you have sort of an integration circle and everybody shares a little bit about what was important or what they learned. And people resonate with what other people say, and they learn, that they're gems that somebody else says that they get to now take as part of their, little treasure chest.
Yeah.
So
potent. Just getting to learn from our humanness. Yeah. That human connection really tills the soil for the medicine experience.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of opinions about psychedelic therapy.
Sure.
And as I am also, navigating and wanting to educate people, I'm always wanting to ask the question to others about if there was one major misconception about psychedelic therapy, what would it be? What would you want people to know or demystify for people?
All right, well, I'm going to say 2 things.
I'll give it to you.
One of them is just that it's a medicine or it's an awakening path. It's not an like, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to be healed. There's no silver bullet. It is a catalyst for change happening faster, but it's also just one tool in the path to self-realization in my opinion and my what I've observed. And so not many people will kind of step into an experience and be like, okay, I had the one experience and I'm good. It's like, no, now I maybe want to go a layer deeper. I'm going to do it again. And now I want to do this other workshop that's, and now I'm going to read this other book. And it's just helping people jump onto that path to be able to come into a space of wholeness. And the other thing is that I think we need to be very careful about how we are seeing and placing and these substances into our society when we don't have a good context for it yet. And I think that's what happened with the FDA rejecting the MDMA therapy proposal, was that there's a whole other conversation, but at the same time, it's hard for me to imagine, okay, well, MDMA gets approved and then what are they going to start serving it in like a Kaiser, right? And like, but there's not a good context for that because, are we supporting people in a community context? Are we supporting people so that they have other people to understand and relate to them as they're going through it? Are we creating containers that are inviting for that? Because doing MDMA in a hospital or any psychedelic in a hospital sounds awful.
Right. No.
Right.
Setting has so much to do with it.
Yeah. And so, while that decision was really devastating, at the same time, I trust that there's an unfolding that's happening here and that all this will come in time.
Yeah. When you envision a future where some of those limitations around psychedelic assisted therapy have been lifted, what excites you the most?
Well, my vision for the future, and I think that that there are community healing centers, or just community centers maybe is even a better way. And maybe it's just a reimagining of what like a church or a temple might be, in that it's a space that we get to go and connect with community, to be of service, to be able to be reminded of our values, to have a place to move through catharsis. And that in those spaces that there are psychedelics available to be done in a group setting, to be able to grow and connect together, but also to connect to something bigger than ourselves, however you define that. And that for people that need an extra particular amount of support, then there are psychedelic therapists that can support there. But that, most people, we need good facilitators, a good guy, elders to support that. But I really see what the future is.
Right. Yeah. I think as a society, we're still kind of creating the bones of the structure of the foundation. And when you're like so dedicated to it, it's hard and frustrating sometimes to be so patient. But I love that vision and how much community is such a part of it, because we are communal creatures. And I think somewhere along the way, we've forgotten that. And it's so much a part of our healing needs to incorporate community. Do you have any other upcoming projects or trainings or resources that you'd like to share with our listeners? Because I think this book is so exciting. It's such a guide to help people understand themselves. So tell us more.
Yeah. Well, right now it's mostly just the book, and you can get it on pre-sale right now on Amazon. But also the website, I've got some free worksheets there and some cute swag that I made. I wanted to make, I wanted a mug that had my little characters on it. So I made a mug. I made several mugs, but so this says, today's a self-care day. And then it's got the little character on the other side.
So
Um,
cute.
yeah, so it's just fun. But it's nice to have reminders, right?
Mhm.
Of to connect with our parts and to slow down and to be with our uh, just make space for our self energy to come through. So a
Right.
good cup of tea is definitely one of the ways that I do that.
Oh, I love it brings such a playfulness in that I really enjoy too, because especially getting to know you, you're very organized and there's structure. I mean, as a scientist, you have to have so much organization and structure. And then there's also this fun, creative space that
Mhm.
you've created and you've are continuing to play with.
Yeah, yeah. I feel really grateful that I haven't lost the connection to the younger parts of myself or the younger versions or the inner children that are inside of me, and I work hard to mm, let them
Keep
be a
them
part of
active.
how I express, and how I
Yeah.
interact in the world.
Hmm. And if anyone wants to find more information about about her swag, about her mugs, and Ashley's book, you can go to ifsandbeyond.com. That's where you can also order the book as well, I'd assume too.
Mhm.
Wonderful. So ifsandbeyond.com, or you can order the book on Amazon. And I'm just so excited. And you know what? I just realized we've been talking about the book, and yet I don't know if I've mentioned the name. So tell us the name of the book.
Yeah,
That's
name of the book
important. That's
is
important.
important. The name of the book is Quieting the Storm Within, and it's
Quieting the storm within.
an illustrated introduction to your parts through IFS and beyond.
Yes, there we go. Yeah. And make sure you have to get the name in.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for your time and your sharing everything. It was such a joy to get to know more about you and your journey, and just the depth of the heartfelt work that you're doing. And I think that yeah, like when you really know that someone's doing their work and living their passion, it's really inspiring. So thank you for sharing yourself today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much, Delightful Humans, for joining us for this episode of Delightfully Dysfunctional, and we will see you in the next one. Bye bye.